webinar done about intersection of technology and family life. I know this topic is very interesting and it is not apparent or obvious from the first of what the intersection or what the connection between technology and family law is. But as we think about it and as we discuss about it more, the connection becomes quite apparent and quite clear. More we explore about this topic, or even if we stop to think about it, we can see the connection and we can see how they are interconnected just by how much time we ourselves spend on social media, on the internet, on anything like on just our smartphones in general. I mean, today is a smartphone era that everything we do is completely dependent on smartphones. If you want to eat food, we order from smartphones. If you want to go to a movie, we order from smartphones. If you want to go somewhere, we take photos on our smartphones. So our smartphones can be thought of as a digital library, which basically holds all the information that is related to us, like our preferences, like where we go, like who we see or who we meet, other stuff like that. So I'd like to start by first, why technology and family law? What is the connection? Right? I think as we discussed right before this, it's quite obvious. And once we think about it, it's quite obvious that technology and family law can be connected in ways which we will discuss further as we go into the more nuances and more details of what it is. But primarily, it is about how technology plays a role in our lives and how we take that role and then explore it and find nuances of it and how it can be applied in family law cases. Like, for example, say if marriage is a marriage, is between two people, where it's fundamentally to join their understanding, to make a family together, to live a life together, and to share that life together. But when we as humans are starting to have our own private lives inside the life that we're living in, that private life that we live on our smartphone, there are nuances that are added to the discussion itself, right? So let's go and see the first one. I guess fundamentally where we start off, family law starts off, it's marriage itself. Online matrimonial platforms, the popularities of online matrimonial platforms have been on a rise since 2010s, right? Since 2010s, I mean, as we all know, in today's day and age, it is very hard for, in a society like India, where love marriage is looked down upon and where arranged marriages have always been the norm. It is quite a huge task for a person to find another person to marry, and not only find another person who's compatible. This is where online matrimonial platforms play a huge role, where online matrimonial platforms have always advocated for either the niches, as in like Hindi matrimony, Kannada matrimony, or language or regional or even caste basis, right? So this is where on the nuances get few. Like, for example, would like a caste-based matrimonial platform be still compliant to the right to equality, for example? Or is it increasing the division, for example? Or is it promoting that division, right? I mean, again, it's quite a complicated debate, but this is all we have to understand for now, that there is that debate. It is pretty apparent, right? And then there's something like concerns about privacy, data protection, and fraud, right? Okay. Online matrimonial platforms, huge fraud websites too, because there have been multiple cases where grooms have been fraudulently lured into marriage and then it is stolen of all their money off, or even filed false cases again. Again, desperation for marriage, get married, not knowing anything about the person, and get into trouble later, right? Which again increases to a large number of family law cases, divorce cases, custody cases. Again, quite a problem, right? And then regulations through laws like Information and Technology Act. This has been regulated. Platforms have been regulated so far, but unfortunately, I don't think enough considering the number of cases we get to see on an everyday basis, right? Next, we go to technology and divorce. Social media and digital communication as evidences in divorce cases, right? let's take a scenario, right? Uh, a person A has been married to a person B, right? Now, A has been talking to other women on, let's say, Instagram, like every man does at this point, unfortunately. But he knows that he's married to the A, married to B. But the person he's talking to on Instagram does not. So he's not only catfishing the person who he's talking to on Instagram, but is also lying to his wife, right? But when B finds out and when she goes ahead with a divorce case, he can use that Instagram messages as evidence that he's his infidelity, or as proof for his infidelity, right? Again, social media, but it's not only limited to Instagram or social media or messages, even photos, even your location, everything, every little thing can be used against you. Social media has played a huge role, or even technology in general has played a huge role in how we perceive information and how we dissect information, or even how information itself is disseminated in the world. Impact on grounds for divorce such as cruelty or adultery. Right? Again, as the example I gave, adultery is again, adultery can also be in the sexual nature, but also I think the definition itself has evolved where even not giving good or even like attention to your own wife might, and shifting that attention somewhere else, or even ignorance of your partner in replacing it with some other person might also lead to allegations of adultery, which can eventually lead to stronger grounds for divorce, right? And then, such as cruelty. Verbal cruelty is such a big reason, right? Verbal cruelty, or even ignorance for that matter. Like, let's say if a person's wife is telling them to get something, right? And if the person does not comply with it, and there is written proof in messages that he is not, and he's instead scolding her that she shouldn't be asking for that, right? Can come under cruelty too. That can be proved as cruelty because it might come under some basic necessities, for example, maintenance and child custody. This one of the biggest ways technology has impacted in family law is not only directly indirect connections as evidences, as we previously talked about, but the judicial side of it. In the judicial side of it, courts have given provision for e-courts and electronic filing and even electronic proceedings of courts, which has is incredibly advantageous for us, not only as budding lawyers to come, but also the people itself, because the processes that are there in family law proceedings have been rapidly increased, not only leading to slower, lesser wait times, but also a faster redressal of each problem. And parental alienation facilitated by technological misuse. Parental alienation. I think all of us have seen this example where whenever you see a kid crying in a restaurant or a flight, their parents, the first thing they do is just hand them over a phone or an iPad. Again, right? So basically, parents are taking off their own responsibility and replacing it with an iPhone or an iPad or anything for that matter. This is very bad because parents are not only taking themselves out of the equation, they're also not thinking about the kids' well-being, on how long the kid should be with technology. The parents are alienating themselves, and it is adversely affecting kids' behavior. And this can eventually also lead to the kid not having a healthy growth cycle. The kid might not have a well-rounded, developed brain, for example. Or the kid can have a lot of psychological issues, feeling that his parents have never been there for him, right? So this can also be categorized under some form of child abuse, which again, technology driven. So interesting, right? Consideration of technology misuse in child custody decisions. Consideration of technology misuse in child custody decisions is, again, the same as we talked about before. Technology can be misused in so many ways. Like, I think there was a recent case, I think, not in India, but in some other state, about how children were filmed as kids and their parents misused that and put it all over the internet. But when the kid grew up, he brought up the contention of that there was no consent taken from him before posting those photos because those were his formative years. And he did not want his formative years to be shared with the world, right? Which was a breach of his privacy, which was a breach of his life choices, right? He did not get a choice. So again, the contention comes there of by using technology, if you do breach kids' privacy or even his trust or even without his consent, right? It is a huge breach and it is a huge problem. How do we contest with it? Is something, again, which is a very deep discussion. Domestic violence and cybercrime. I think this is one of the biggest problems that we have right now. And quite surprisingly, this can also happen in a familial situation, right? Like I think, for example, how rape, although is a social problem, but it can also be a family problem. Although in India, unfortunately, still rape is not considered sorry, marital rape is not illegal. It's still legal. It's not illegalized yet, and the courts have been discussing about it. So we will see what happens to that. But also, when it comes to domestic violence and cybercrime, in familial situations, it does exist, and it is a very big thing. Like, for examples, even cyber harassment or even non-consent cyber harassing or cyber stalking is still a huge problem in families itself. Like how husbands stalk the wife's phones, for example, on how they keep stalking on people, uh, alleging infidelity, they stalk on their partner's phones, which is quite a breach of privacy and also not a healthy thing to generally happen, which can also lead to grounds for divorce. Right? And then there's cyber harassment. A husband can theoretically harass his wife through a phone, and not only directly, but also through a phone by constantly messaging her, threatening her, again, as it goes on. And then there is non-consensual sharing of intimate images, which is, I think, quite a big problem that exists. I think there is this notion of when a person gets married to someone, there is a notion of being secure. That, oh, the person wouldn't mind if I do this, right? Which I don't think, which is not at all right. I think in a situation of marriage, it is very, very important for there to be trust there, and not only trust, to never forget the fact that consent is always important in whatever matters. And non-consensually sharing your partner's intimate images is a very, very big breach of their privacy, which is a very huge problem. And not only is it a breach of privacy, it's also infringing on the modesty of your partner. Uh, Laws like Waste Technology Act and Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act have been enacted and have been regulated in a way where it covers domestic violence and cybercrimes in marital situations, but I think there's still a long way to go for us. Challenge in implementation and victim support. Challenges in implementation and victim support through technology, through phones, has been widened, where pretty much anybody who's in trouble or is a victim can easily seek help through just contacting the helplines, contacting websites, contacting organizations, contacting even the judiciary, for example. So again, technology has had a very deep impact in family law. Ethical considerations, data privacy, algorithmic bias, concern. Data privacy, I think, is the hugest problem when it comes to technology and family law, because family law, as we know, there is an unsaid rule between a husband and wife, where a wife is not compelled to uh, testify against the husband uh, for things said during marriage, because there is confidentiality there. There is in law confidentiality between the husband and wife. So, but all of this information being in the technological space, there is a huge concern about data privacy and algorithmic bias. data privacy is constantly breached every day by uh, everybody pretty much. I think we definitely not only, it might be you or you might know somebody who's had a data breach, but you might not know where and how. Right? Data breach is one of the biggest problems that we are facing with. Impact of technology on children's well-being. As we talked about in detail, children's well-being, children's growth, children's holistic growth is highly dependent on how the parents take care of them. Yeah? But when it is constantly being replaced by technology and phones or iPads, it is quite a complex and quite a concerning thing. Right? Need for legal policy and framework. We understand the fact that technology is very important when it comes to family law, but I think we have not done enough in terms of how far our policies and legal frameworks go to not only secure all the provisions, but there is a lot more to be done. And I think we as budding lawyers are at the forefront of that. We have to raise our voice. We have to give our suggestions, for example. So I think uh, this is as far as eventually talk about the future of technology and family law. Embracing, I think everybody right now knows that uh, the future of law is going to be digital and it's going to be online. And what we can do as individuals or as people or as even budding lawyers is to embrace these technologies and access to justice, right? It can either be through what you court hearings, ADR, right? I think as lawyers, we are quite confident that ADR is going to be the future, right? ADR, the ease that ADR brings with it, I think is something that is not matched necessarily. So I think it is quite clear that ADR is going to be the future. So embracing it as the only thing that we can do to not only secure our future, but also to progress the legal field in general, right? And we have to strike a balance between technological advancements and safeguarding family law principles. I think family law principles have long been standing as the ethical and fundamental basis for human existence. And we need to find a good balance between technological advancement and safeguarding family law principles because it is very necessary. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and please like, share, and subscribe Law Minds.